Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of TA with K. My name, of course, is still McKay. Now, it's been a couple months since I made a video. I do apologize if you've missed my goofy-looking face. Life has just been very, very busy, but I felt like with what the markets look like they're trying to do right now, obviously Bitcoin's rallied up to almost 100K, but more importantly, in my mind, we're seeing signs that altcoin season that we've all been waiting for is potentially just around the corner. Basically, it's already started in my mind, but we're seeing kind of the first signs of money transitioning into Ethereum, which is going to be the topic of today's video. I'll be putting out a series of videos over the next few days, of course, or the next few weeks, I should say, kind of diving back into some of the price predictions that I've come up with using my formula. For those of you that have been around on my channel for a while, you probably watched some of those videos, are curious on an update on that, so I will be providing that as well. But today's video, we're going to focus primarily on Ethereum because I believe it is now the engine that will be driving our altcoins to these price projections that I have and possibly even beyond. So if that sounds interesting to you and you're new to the channel, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. It does me a huge favor, helps get this video out to a larger audience, and of course gives me that one step closer to being able to monetize this channel and turn it from a side hobby, hopefully someday, into something a little bit more than that. But either way, you know, I do enjoy making the content. So for those of you that have been around for a while, have already subbed, do watch my videos, I appreciate each and every one of you. With all that out of the way, let's roll the intro. Alright guys and gals, I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm going to level with you. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, jam-packed with hopefully some useful information for you, things you find interesting. Of course, towards the end, I will give my own personal price projection for Ethereum, but grab a glass of water, whatever you need to, buckle up, and let's go. Alrighty then, so logically the first place we're going to start is the Bitcoin chart, but we're not going to spend very much time on it, just kind of give an update of what I see going on. Now obviously we consolidated or went sideways and down for more or less a few months, basically from March's top until the recent breakout that happened kind of the beginning of November. Saw price go from just under 70K, you know, of course, to where it is now, and almost hit 100K. I believe it was like 99,500. We had that long drawn out consolidation period, like I said, more kind of like a falling wedge or maybe a bull flag. I mean, it really doesn't really matter what you think it was at the end of the day. I just think it was a consolidation period, more or less. Had some sellers, had the buyers, sellers, buyers, and eventually the sellers got exhausted and, you know, it broke higher. And then, of course, you had new buyers into the market, you know, retail buyers, some of the people that you've probably heard at the grocery stores or the family members at the table for Thanksgiving, maybe talking about crypto. That's kind of some of your first signs that retail's entering the market, when you start having people that you don't normally associate with crypto suddenly talking about it. Now, there hasn't been enough of that yet to scare me, but I'm starting to see the first signs of that. And here, if we kind of zoom into the lower time frame, this is the hourly on TradingView, we can get a better idea of kind of what price action is doing. Clearly, you had this area over here where it kind of went sideways and was kind of struggling with more or less the 90 to 92 range. And then on the other side of that, when it broke higher, that's kind of where it retested. So you can kind of see kind of an imaginary zone of a previous resistance that it was struggling with, that now is trying to act as support. As long as that area holds, I believe that we're most likely in for at least one push higher before any sort of major pullback. But of course, my opinion would change if we lost that area. If we, you know, break basically 90K on higher time frames, I would expect to retrace back somewhere closer to like 80K at that point, 80 to 85. Probably would happen pretty quick too if we visit that area and that support doesn't hold. But the way price looks like right now, especially how quick it bounced and recovered from there, and then even on lower time frames, you kind of started seeing little bull flags. Looks like we're trying to do the same thing again. You know, to me, it looks like price wants to make a push higher before anything, but, you know, of course, we'll just have to wait and see. But really what interests me more and has my attention would be Ethereum, because we're kind of at the point in the cycle where we're starting to see money transition out of Bitcoin into Ethereum. And so the first chart I want to look at, we will look at Bitcoin dominance in just a second to kind of explain why it's pretty obvious that this is happening. But I wanted to show you guys this chart first, just to kind of explain that this is a chart that really kind of, in my eyes, tells us, hey, we're at least at a safe level to buy Ethereum. And what I mean by that is this is Ethereum directly put up against Bitcoin. And if you look at this chart, just like any other chart, you have red and green candles. Now, anytime it's a green candle, it doesn't mean that Ethereum, the price of Ethereum necessarily went up, but it just means that during that candle, which is, this is the weekly chart I'm on, that during a week where this is green, it means that the price of Ethereum outperformed the price of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin went up by 5%, Ethereum would have had to gone up by more than that in order to print a green candle. The reverse of that could be true as well. Obviously, that if it's printing red, it means that if Bitcoin went up by 5%, Ethereum would have went up by, say, 3%, meaning it got, Bitcoin outperformed it. Thus, it printed a red candle. The nuances of this is, of course, that they could both go down and this could still print a red or green candle. If Bitcoin drops by 5% and Ethereum only drops by 3%, meaning it dropped by less, it would still mean it outperformed it, and so this chart would print a green candle. So you can't look at this chart and go, oh, green means the Ethereum price went up. It just means that if it's printing green, that if you were a person that only held, say, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you just transitioned from one to the other at different times, that you could look at this chart and try to get an idea of maybe when it's better to be in one or the other. So again, this is the weekly chart, but clearly ever since basically August of 2022, so a couple years ago, it's been in a downtrend versus Bitcoin, meaning that if you had, $1,000 that you had put into Ethereum and $1,000 that you put into Bitcoin at that point, and we all know that crypto's obviously gone up overall since then, since the bottom of the bear market. But you would have been, your money in Bitcoin would of course be outperforming. Your 1,000 would turn into maybe 2,000 or more, because Bitcoin's over doubled obviously since the bottoms, and Ethereum hasn't even reached new all-time highs yet. So versus Bitcoin, Ethereum has obviously underperformed. But I've had this big zone, green resistance zone drawn on this chart for quite some time. It represented kind of the area that I thought or believed that the change of money or the change of dominance would go from Bitcoin over to Ethereum, and I had a few reasons for that. Some of the obvious reasons would just be that there's previous resistance and support, more resistance in the past. So you have past resistance that is trying to be looked as support now, and then you had this trend line that has a couple touches on it, 1, 2, 3 touches, which isn't a ton, but it just kind of coincides with right about where it's at now. It bounced perfectly on that trend line, and it's basically bouncing right around that zone of support as well. Now you'll also notice, of course, that I do have this upper trend line drawn as well. Now I don't think this one holds really a whole lot of weight. I mean, it is just 2 touches at the end of the day, and this isn't even a regular price action chart. Like I said, this is just Ethereum versus Bitcoin, so it's not like that line is going to hold a whole lot of weight. It's not going to be actual resistance, but it's something that I like to draw just in case it happens to align down the road with an actual area of support, or in this case, resistance that's above us. So if we go ahead and look here on the chart, we can kind of see here there's a zone above us, a big zone where we can make some lines of support, resistance. In fact, maybe pull this up a little bit further, maybe somewhere like there. It's up there. Now you can see that back here you had this act as resistance, support. It did dip a little lower, but these support resistance lines are never going to be perfect at the end of the day, especially on a chart like this that's not even versus the US dollar. But clearly you can see that this area overhead is going to be the first major zone of resistance that at some point I believe Ethereum will test. Could even be as soon as the next couple of weeks. And if you look at that, where that would coincide with maybe kind of this resistance trend line as well, and the 200 moving average, you could see that maybe something right around, we'll just call it 0.06, which represents basically 6% of Bitcoin. We could kind of get an idea of where we think the next stop in price could be for Ethereum. Now, of course, it will be dependent on what the price of Bitcoin is at that time, since this is just a percentage basically of what Bitcoin's represents a percentage of what Bitcoin's price is. So if Bitcoin's at 100K, that math is easy, like I said, but let's just say it was at 110K or something like that. Maybe pumps to 120, retraces back to 110, and that's when Ethereum is breaking and running to do all-time highs. Well, then you could take something like 110K, times that by, the underside of this resistance zone that I have here at 0.057-ish, 0.057, and then you have something like almost $6,300 Ethereum. So to me, if I was looking for a target, let's just say I was planning to invest a bunch of money right now in Ethereum, and I'm looking for a safe target that seems very, very realistic to hit. The way that I would do it is I would say, okay, let's just make the assumption that it's near 100K at the time that Ethereum is approaching this resistance. Could it be at 110 or even 120 or higher? Definitely. But most likely, if Ethereum is stealing the show and making new all-time highs, Bitcoin's probably in a consolidation period at that point, or a sideways at the very least, maybe even slight retrace potentially, kind of like what it's doing now, really. And so, you know, even if Bitcoin does push higher to 110, there's a good chance that it's back close to 100 at the time that Ethereum is approaching this zone of resistance. So I just like it for easy math. We take $100,000, times it by 0.057. Of course, that's easy. It comes out to $5,700 Ethereum. And just as a quick side note on something that I kind of find cool with Ethereum, I mean, it's not a lot of price data history that, you know, necessarily means this is a trend yet, but just something I kind of found interesting is that if you look over here at the 2018 top, which was obviously around $1,400, almost $1,500, but you had that top, you had the huge retrace, and then you had kind of the last big bear market rally. And if you take kind of that top and this top, you can see that's basically what the price of Ethereum, as it retraced from this last bull run, used as support. You know, it bounced basically right here on the top of that last big rally. You know, the first time that it bounced and went higher, of course, it was flipping the old high as support after it had rallied up, and it made one more big push. So it kind of just, you know, off of that logic, it kind of makes you wonder if the end of this next bull run, will it do the same thing? You know, if we reach, say, $8,000, for example, as a price for Ethereum, are we going to come back and eventually see kind of the bear market rally, you know, end up being the support, which I guess you could say would be this level, right? $3,600. So that's basically where we're at now. And it's, you know, of course, it's breaking through that as we speak, but the area we're at now, in my mind, it would not surprise me at the end of this bull run if this winds up being kind of the support. But anyway, I digress. Now, if we're looking at this chart for some confluence with that, you know, 5,700-ish number that we came up with for Ethereum, we could first use something like this trend-based fib extension tool. This works best, I've found, just going from, like, you know, big lows to highs back to lows. So, for example, we'll take the bear market low of 2018 here, and we'll go to the all-time high from last bull run, which happened in 1, and then bring it down to the bear market low of 2022. And you can see there that by doing that, those 3 points, that the measured move of that basically low to high to low has a measured move of just under 5,700 at about 56.78, probably give or take a few dollars depending on if I zoomed in and got my dots in the exact right spot. And then, of course, another tool we can use, which is actually my preferred tool for price discovery targets. What I mean by price discovery is just whenever a price or an asset has broken its previous all-time high, you know, then it's not bound, like I said, by any sort of overhead resistance at that point. There's not any exact price where there's been previous sellers or buyers at. Then you can use a tool like this to, you know, find fib targets. So if we go from the all-time high of just under 4,900 down to the bear market low, back across, we can see the first major fib target that comes after, you know, all-time highs is the 1.272, which comes in at just under 6K. So that kind of shows you some confluence that if and when we break all-time highs, the price starts to go into price discovery. And in my mind, one of the first areas I would be targeting to take major profits, you know, on whatever you're holding or plan to buy now, for example, would be just around, you know, 6K basically. I would, of course, front run that a little bit and maybe aim closer to the $5,700 number just to be safe, but you can see some confluence that lines up with that area. And now for just a couple of minutes, I want to hop over to my Google Sheets document. This was the document that I used in all of my price projection videos to give, you know, those actual projections. And for those of you that are new to it, or even those of you that have been around, I just want to go over it again and kind of revisit it to explain kind of what I think price targets that are fair for Ethereum could be. I never did put out an official video for Ethereum itself when I did those price projection videos. I had talked about it in a video about Bitcoin, just kind of some targets for Ethereum, but I never put out its own video just because I thought the altcoins were a little more exciting. Of course, there's always potentially bigger gains coming from altcoins, higher risk, higher reward. But at the end of the day, some people are big Ethereum fans, and that's where they want to put all their money. And I don't blame you, because it's probably, you know, it is the second safest coin that you could hold out besides Bitcoin. Maybe it doesn't give quite as crazy gains as, you know, an altcoin that's, you know, ranked number 150, but it's also not going to drop to 0 tomorrow like some of the coins outside of the top 100 could. So just a quick summary of basically what the numbers on this chart represent is what I did is I went back using a different website, coincodex, I believe it was, .com. You could put in time dates and it would tell you, put in an exact date and time, and it would just tell you at that point in time what all the prices of different cryptos were at inside of the top 100. You could go as high as 500 actually on that website. I'll leave a link in the description, but we're not going to go over the actual website in today's video. But what I did is I just took the top of the bull market, 2021, November 13th, 2021, when Bitcoin topped, and basically more or less took a snapshot of what the top 100 coins and beyond's prices were at from a market cap perspective, how much money was in each position. And then I used that to try to project this bull run based on dominance for Bitcoin and Ethereum, projected out market caps at that point, and then divided that out potential market caps based on each position. I know I just said a whole lot, maybe it didn't make a lot of sense, but if you look over here in this blue line here, column, sorry, you can see that I have different position ranks like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And then this percentage by position, it was what I actually spent the time putting together based on the top of last bull run. I said, okay, when Bitcoin topped, what percentage did position number 7 take up of the overall market cap of all of crypto? And so, for example, position 7 took up exactly 2%. And then you kind of go down here, you can see that you get all the way down to something like number 100, and it's 0.04. So obviously I spent a good chunk of time putting this together. I'm fairly proud of it. However, it does not come without its faults. There's variables that I understand that I can't project out. Like, I don't know that if this bull run there'll be the same amount of money from a percentage standpoint in, say, for position 5 through 10, for example. There could be less money, maybe more money's put in, you know, positions 15 through 20 or something, right? The money's not going to shake out exactly the same. That's one of the variables that I just have no control over. Another variable would be obviously the Bitcoin dominance, how much money from a percentage point is going to be in Bitcoin. I just went with kind of an average, or something that felt like a good average, but, you know, depending on if that's higher or lower. If it's lower, that means more money could be in the altcoins, meaning my projections are low. If Bitcoin dominance is higher, then there's less money in the altcoins. So there doesn't come without faults, this chart. I just wanted to put something together to help kind of govern my targets. Like, you know, besides just using confluence of things like the fib tracebit tool that we were using in the previous segment, things like that, what could I look at to help me have an idea of where prices could go based on Bitcoin price? And also, for those of you that are new to my channel and, you know, find this interesting, which I hope you would if you're actually watching the video still to this point, I will leave a link in the description to the full video that I made about this formula, how it works, how I came up with it, and all of that. I would recommend watching that if it does interest you. I just wanted to kind of give a quick dive in this video so you can make sense of kind of where I'm coming at from my Ethereum angle. So up here at the top, it says dominance projections, and I have Bitcoin here as 47.5% and Ethereum at 17.5%. Well, if we hop over to the actual Bitcoin dominance chart, you can see that at the time of making this video, it's actually at about 57 and almost 0.5%, right? And it actually put in what I think will be the macro top for this cycle. Time will tell over the next few weeks to months, but it actually got up as high as about 61.5% before it started to retrace. But over the past couple of years, this chart has been in an uptrend, which basically means overall money as it's come into crypto has flowed more into Bitcoin than the altcoins as a whole, meaning that if you were 2 years ago, you were deciding to put 10 grand into crypto, you would have been better off basically to put it in Bitcoin than, say, you know, another large cap coin like Litecoin. Bitcoin has outperformed, you know, the majority of the coins outside of a few outliers over the last 2 years. That being said, if the 61.5% level ends up being the top for Bitcoin dominance for this bull run, we should start seeing, and I think we already are starting to see, money trying to transition to other things, Ethereum being the first most logical choice, which is why we're talking about it in today's video, out of Bitcoin. So for example, last bull run, Bitcoin actually topped for the second time, so its final macro top happened on November 13th of 2021, where you can see here on this chart that November of 2021 was actually, well, down here somewhere, we'll find it here right around about here, which would have been, dominance was sitting at around 44, between 42 and 44%, so something like right around 43. So, you know, even though its dominance got as high as 70, When Bitcoin itself topped, it was much, much lower, which tells me that if it does something similar to this bull run, which history does tend to repeat itself, or at least rhyme, that if this is going to retrace down and money starts flowing into altcoins, that doesn't mean Bitcoin's topped. Bitcoin could easily push to 150, 200K, some of the numbers that other people project. I personally don't see it going to 200K this cycle. That's just me, but I would be super ecstatic if it did. But the biggest thing that the point of this video is that we can see the signs that it's looking like it's time to start transitioning into other things besides Bitcoin. And the fact that we're at 57% also kind of makes sense as I put out my price projection updates that this isn't all lining up yet from a market cap perspective, right? We're at 100K right now, and I have position number 3, let's just take 5 for example, at 100K being worth around $101 billion. Well, we can go over here to something like CoinGecko.com and see that position number 5 is not worth $101 billion. Actually, it is worth $101 billion. So those positions are actually lining up rather nicely, right? 106 billion, in fact. So it even topped my projection quite a bit. But because the dominance is so high still, I think what it really is affecting is most likely going to be these coins further down the list. So take, for example, coin number 100 on the list at the time of making this video. Let's just go at 99, since that's a coin a lot of people know, Jasmy coin. Its market cap is about just under 1.4 billion. Go back to my chart and we scroll down to position 100, go over, and I had 1.7 billion. So 0.3 billion, you add another 0.3, which is 300 million, to the price of Jasmy, and you would see a higher price, of course, out of that coin. And you'll kind of see that that's a common theme if you were to dive into this. For most of the positions outside of those top 5 or so, clearly a lot of money has started to flow into those larger caps, which is another sign that we are kind of transitioning to alt season. That's a topic for another day as far as the exact flow of money, but typically you do see money flow into the large caps first, and it's kind of later in this altcoin season, so to speak, that you'll see money flow into the smaller caps. But the biggest thing that's happening right now is Bitcoin dominance is starting to come down. How low will it go? Well, my safe bet was around 47.5%, which if we hop back over to the dominance chart, that would actually be kind of lining up with this being support. I do believe we go lower. In fact, I'm pretty confident that it would go lower. But again, when I was making those videos, I was trying to come at them from an angle of what I thought was the safest possible targets. That way you could be aggressive if you chose to buy some of those coins, buy aggressively and sell aggressively to make sure that you made profits and didn't have to hold on hoping for prices that may never come. To me, those were pretty safe numbers, because you can see that if this trend line were to mean anything, it doesn't mean it will, but if it were to mean anything, we could see as low as 41, 42% this bull run. Saw it last bull run on several occasions. Even the one prior to that, it actually went even lower than that. As low as 35, 36%. I don't personally think with this bull run that it'll go that low. Bitcoin, with some of the new ETF coming out and that kind of stuff, and some of the bigger money now entering the space, I do think that it'll be a Bitcoin dominant bull run overall, just my opinion. But I still think altcoins are going to have their day in the sun, and I think that we could see something like 42, 45, between 42 and 45%. But even based on my chart over here, where I came up with these market caps based on 100K Bitcoin, for example, if we get down to below 50%, that's when I think some of these numbers will start to line up a little bit closer to what I have here. And if they're higher, great, right? That just means I was really safe on my targets. The other part of this, or the other half to this equation, is Ethereum dominance, how much money is going to be in Ethereum. You hop over to that dominance chart, it's also low, or it's lower than, Bitcoin's has all the attention, like we said, so right now it's high. But Ethereum dominance is low, which means it could come up a little ways, and I have this kind of trend line drawn to give me something kind of eyeball as it approaches as possibly being the area where, okay, maybe Ethereum is going to find its top. And depending on when it gets there, it could be somewhere between 16.5 and 17%, which would be a little bit lower than what I had over here on this chart here. But I think if anything, that's just more bullish for the rest of the altcoins. It means Ethereum's not taking too much of their potential market caps. Alrighty guys, if you've stuck around to this point, bravo. I'm sure it's probably going to be a pretty long video. I'm sure we're already over 20 minutes at this point. But I haven't made a video in a while, so I had to kind of come back with a bang, so to speak. So what I want to end this video out is my Ethereum price predictions or projections, based of course on my formula. Now on this Google Sheets document, I don't actually show coin number 2, and we know number 1's obviously Bitcoin and number 2 is Ethereum. But what I have here that will help me to make these projections is my projected Ethereum dominance, which I think is actually on the high side. It probably could end up a little bit lower than that, something like 16.5, 17% when it peaks, but I have it at 17.5 for the sake of this chart. And then I also have, of course, these different Bitcoin projected prices with projected market caps for all of crypto. So for example, if we take like 4.193 trillion, go to this website that I use, which is calculator.net. I've already typed the numbers in here, but I will leave a link in the description to this website. But what I did here is I put what is 17.5% of this total market cap, which is 4.193 trillion, 4.193 trillion. And that came out to this number of 733, almost 734 million. So what you can do then is you can take that number. So we'll take 700 and we'll just do 33 billion. Of course, we got to put a bunch of zeros. And then you divide the market cap, the projected market cap, by the circulating supply of the coin, which we have pulled up here on CoinGecko. And luckily for Ethereum, it is deflationary, I believe. So this could, if anything, come down over time. But for now, it shows that the circulating supply and total supply is this 120 million. We're going to type that in, 441,030. And then we hit equal, and that gives us a projected price of $6,000, slightly above at $6,085. And now we're over here on an actual weekly chart for Ethereum with my price projections based on a few different Bitcoin possibilities as far as price is concerned. We have 100K, which is the one that I just talked about. That was the 4.193 trillion market cap. And that gives us an Ethereum of 6,085, which of course from where we're at now, even if you bought today, I'm not saying necessarily that you should based on the fact that we do have some overhead resistance, but that's still almost a 64% price increase from where we're at now. 115K based on my formula would be about $7,000, and then 130K Bitcoin would actually be just under $8,000. With all that being said, what would be my personal prediction or price projection for Ethereum for this bull run? Well, again, as has been the case with all of these price projection videos, I like to keep it on the safer side. I'm of the opinion that we're going to break 100K. I don't think we've seen our top yet, but I do also believe that there's a very high likelihood that once we do, we're going to rally up to whatever that number ends up being, which could be higher than 115K or 115K, which has been my price projection for Bitcoin. Could go to 130, but at any rate, I'm basing my projection for Ethereum off of 115K. I do believe Bitcoin, whenever it finds its top, Ethereum will be a few weeks to maybe a month or two after that. And of course, based on my price prediction, Google Sheets document formula that I use, that would put us at $7,000 Ethereum, which you can see here that if you zoom in, that would be just under a 90% potential gain if you bought Ethereum today. Hopefully a lot of you have it at lower prices from months ago, possibly even bear market prices. But even at this point, that's still almost a 2x. Now, of course, keep in mind that Ethereum could easily go much higher than this. Just I'm of the opinion that Bitcoin, of course, would need to go higher than like 130K for that to happen. But you could see even on my chart that if Bitcoin were to go to say like 180K or even 200K, you're going to have something closer to like an $8 trillion market cap. And in that case, Ethereum is going to easily top 10K, probably be something like $11,000 to almost $12,000 Ethereum. A lot of people have been predicting or projecting those kind of prices for Ethereum. It doesn't mean that I don't believe that they could be correct. It just, to me, that would obviously mean that Bitcoin needs to be up there in the upwards of at least 150 plus K, and probably closer to 200K. Thank you so much for those of you that stuck around to the end of the video. If you haven't already, please do me a favor and remember to like and subscribe and all of that. Of course, on your screen on the way out, there will be a couple videos that pop up for some more of my price projection videos. You're welcome to watch those. And as always, remember to invest in yourself.